Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechphilly.com, and as you can see here, columnist for the Jewish Press.
Right, Rabbi, and I'm having fun with all three assignments, and the column in the Jewish Press is called Albany Beat, and I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. But someone who I believe relates well to the Jewish community is our guest today, Richard Conti, the Albany Common Council Pro Tem, and means you run the show in the Albany Common Council.
The President Pro Tem.
President Pro Tem, right. So you run the show in the Common Council. You set the agenda.
Set the agenda, assign, appoint committees, assign legislation, try to make sure that the meetings run smoothly and along.
Is that an elected position?
The President Pro Tem is elected by the other 15 members of the council. So I'm elected from an individual ward, the 6th Ward, which is downtown Center Square, Hudson Park, Lark Street area. And then at the beginning of our organizational meeting, when the council meets to elect their officers, they elect a President Pro Tem and they elect a majority leader.
And Dan Herring, we had on the show, is the majority leader. Do you have any opposition ever? Because you've been in this position as President Pro Tem.
I've been President Pro Tem since 2004, I think.
It over
was
a decade.
Yeah, it was a midterm adjustment, and I've been elected by my colleagues every 4 years since then.
And have you ever had opposition? Has anyone ever expressed interest in this?
No, I think I guess people have been satisfied somewhat, although not everybody agrees with me. But
not only satisfied, but
yeah.
Maybe this is a big lift and no one else wants to have. I mean, you don't get extra pay for this.
There is a little bit of a stipend for the leadership, but there is extra responsibility.
Yes.
In terms of additional meetings, coordinating committee assignments, things of that nature.
Takes away from your personal time.
Tell me about it. But it also, it's important when you're President Pro Tem, and I hope I do that. I try to treat all of my colleagues and members with respect,
yes,
and be even-handed, and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to, do what they need to do as far as representing their constituents and doing the job that they need to do.
And personally, I've only heard good things. So that's why I asked if you've ever had opposition, because it would have surprised me if you said yes.
Yeah.
But I've only heard good things about your
There
leadership
are some people that say,
What are the big issues in Albany that you feel?
Oh, right now the big issues, and we're going to have to deal with that coming up soon. The months of October and November are really, time-consuming because we're dealing with financial issues and the city's financial situation, which, like a lot of urban areas, we have a lot of demands for services. We have limitations on how we can raise revenue in terms of our tax base and other areas. So when it all comes back to, it always comes back to money. And so it's really being able to have the funds you really need to provide the services that people expect from city government, police, fire, sanitation, the basic public services like that. So that really is the biggest issue that we have right now.
Do you have a say-so as the Common Council President? Because you have the mayor and you have the individuals. Would you say you're more like an organizer, or, hey, this is my opinion,
and really,
just the way I'm
just to clarify, because the President Pro Tem is a position, and there is a council president.
Oh, really?
And the council president, who's elected citywide, is the presiding officer. So at the role of the council president, presides at meetings and has some other functions. So there is a president.
So
and that's
good to know.
Carolyn McLaughlin, who's been on the program also.
Right.
Carolyn and I were both elected at the same time.
So she runs citywide.
So the president runs citywide. They are the presiding officer, preside at meetings. The president does not vote.
Right. Unless
there's a tie. And the president succeeds to the office of mayor in the event that there's a vacancy. It's sort of like vice president or lieutenant governor.
Right, and that happened
when Erastus Corning passed away, That's how Tom Whalen became mayor. He succeeded that way.
Right.
So that's.
Did you know, were you around at that?
I was just coming in. I'm not originally from Albany.
You're
but
from Staten Island?
I grew up on Staten Island. And,
Sorry to hear that. No, I'm from Brooklyn. Staten Island should be part of Jersey, according to Brooklynites. So.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, a lot of Brooklynites moved down to Staten Island and changed the whole idea.
What's a good Democrat like you doing in a Republican borough like Staten Island?
Actually,
Just had to ask, that's
the
all.
registration on Staten Island is actually more Democratic than Republican. And it is more Democratic now than it was. And I grew up. My father was active in Richmond County Democratic Committee, so that's how I kind of also. I was always interested in politics. I kind of got involved that way. He was a committee person down there.
So did you know Betty Connolly at the time?
I knew who she was and kind of knew her. Yeah, and then of course she served in the Assembly for a number of years where I work now, and she was a member of the Health Committee. Which is where I
are
work.
chief of staff.
So correct. So
Of the health committee,
I knew
not
her.
health, yeah.
I knew her back then, and her husband was an alumni of the high school I went to, which was St. Peter's High School.
Isn't it
for boys.
amazing how small world?
Yeah, no, it all comes together, and St. Peter's is also a Christian Brothers school, so it's not like a CBA up here, but that was my background.
So, we call it Jewish geography when it's in the Jewish community, but
Right.
yeah, maybe Catholic geography or something. But,
Yeah, it's, and you run into a lot of people from Staten Island.
but I remember, back then, Strinieri and Connolly
Yep.
and John Markey, of course, in the Senate.
Correct. All people that I remember, and growing up on Staten Island, you grew up with John Markey when I was growing up.
He was
because
old
he
then when you were
He was there
young.
for a long time, but
Well, he
that's
served over 50 years in the state Senate.
Yeah, correct. So, but in terms of going back to a little bit to some of the
Okay, sure,
issues that
we
we're
digress.
dealing with, I think that's what the nature of the show seems to be. So, budget is very important to us right now, but also we're dealing with this whole rezoning
Yes.
initiative called
But let's
Rezone
stay-
Albany. So
let's-
that's something that's going to be discussed a lot during October, November, December as well.
Let's stay on the budget.
Sure.
The budget is 10% out of whack in the sense that it's approximately a $180 million budget and 18 million deficit. Approximately.
Approximately,
Round
I think it's probably maybe 20, but there is.
$20 million deficit?
It's in the area 18 to 20 million, and we'll have a better idea once it's released. It's a structural deficit, which means that we have this structural gap that we've had it's not new. We've had the gap for a long time, going back to the previous administration as well.
Right.
And it's the difference is our expenditures and our revenues don't match up. And we're not really able to increase the revenues that we need sufficiently without really creating a problem
So when
to
I
meet that
So when
revenue gap.
when I sat through several of the Rezone Albany presentations, it seems as though by rezoning the city, you can possibly get more income by resizing what types of properties could be built a certain place. And
Yeah, I don't think that the intention of rezone is not to generate more income. It is to make the zoning system and neighborhood development and economic development easier and more friendly. So it's also easier for businesses that want to come in and
Right.
relocate to know, what the rules are.
Which brings more money
Yeah,
into the coffers of the city. I mean,
right.
there's nothing wrong in saying that.
I mean, I think one of the ways that we have to deal with our financial problem also is to grow our base, our economic base, and getting more businesses and increasing the value, the value of our property. That grows the base so that the tax burden is spread out more, and then you can hopefully increase the revenue that way.
Sure, you get rid of some of those zombie homes or whatever. But are there line items in the budget that could be eliminated? I know that the state did this in order to bring the gap closer, close the gap a little. Is that if you take out line items of jobs that are not filled but have a price tag on that line, that you can
You always have a certain number of vacant positions, and right now there is kind of a hiring freeze on, except for those positions that need to be filled. You have positions that are funded by grants, for example, that you need to fill them, or we have grants that are dependent on positions being filled, so that you do that.
But can
You can look at the issue of vacancies and vacant positions and make an assessment as to whether or not you need to continue or
Right.
not. It's not the structural deficit we have is not one which you can just, fill that way. I sometimes call,
but
nickel
it's
and diming it.
It's one mechanism, I think. And I was just going to ask you, does the mayor?
But remember, a lot of our expense, it tends to be personnel and benefits.
Right.
Tends to be, obligated benefits in terms of pension, which we don't determine our pension contribution because we're part of the state retirement system. So the state controller sets what we have to pay. Police and fire, for example, are big areas. We have grants that fund part of the staffing for police and fire right now. So if we wanted to reduce police and fire,
Right.
we would have to get rid of grant-funded positions first. That doesn't create any savings for us because those grants come with a maintenance of effort requirement.
And these are federal, I remember being at one of the firehouses where it was like, Senator Schumer was supposed to show
Yes,
up. didn't-
we have a safer grant for the firefighters that enabled us to bring 15 new firefighters on.
Right.
And we have I'm not sure what it's called, it's still called a COPS or more COPS grant for the police department. So those are areas where you really can't reduce staffing there without really cutting very deeply
Right.
to the point where it's difficult.
It's safe, it's unsafe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes the city unsafe.
But, we look at, and I think this administration has been good in terms of looking at efficiencies in how we operate, looking at, how we measure time and attendance. So we've gone to electronic time and attendance, looking at improving our IT systems,
Yeah.
things of that nature, so that we can operate. That's one of it. You need to operate more efficiently, and that generates savings. But they come over time sometimes, and it's not like a magic bullet. Like you turn something on, it's right there.
So maybe you can explain something to me. I've been around the Capitol for about 30 plus years, 35 plus years, and I'm always
That's
used,
longer than I have.
and I'm used to the situation where the leaders of the House come down and meet with the governor and hammer out, certain requests. Obviously, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars
Right.
of a budget as opposed to 180 million. But do you meet with the mayor before she presents her budget and go over the budget? Because it doesn't seem as though you dispose of much of her budget because you don't have a budget staff.
Well,
in the
we don't
common
have,
council.
part of, and even on the state level, when you have the discussions regarding the budget, when it ends up with, even though it sounds like a big amount, you're talking about a small percentage.
Yeah, I know. 2%,
And so,
3%.
so $1 billion on this, you can talk about $1 billion on the state side, and it's a small percentage in comparison to the 50 or 80 or whatever billions they talk about there. And the same thing on the city side, we end up arguing about or discussing about, 2 or 3%, because that's what you have the flexibility to deal with. We can't touch, benefits, we can't touch contractual obligations, we can't touch debt service, we can't touch salaries or eliminate positions or, things like that. So we have to work, in a sense, with, we have a limited purview that we work within, but you also need to work with the executive and with the mayor, I think, in terms of working together cooperatively to try to come to mutual agreement on issues.
So
like
you
that.
don't meet with her ahead of time?
I do not know
She
the
just
the
proposes her
details
budget.
of the budget.
And then you see it for the first time when she presents it?
Yes.
Okay.
But what you try to do, and with the finance committee, what they do, and they should do, and what I think our current chair, Councilmember Duché, does, is the finance committee will be having establish more of a relationship with budget staff, so that we have ongoing discussions during the course of the year in terms of some of the challenges and things, and so there are certain expectations that we have as far as what might
Now,
be included.
Frank Camiso now works for the county controller. He worked for the state controller. He's a numbers geek. And he doesn't mind me saying that. But wouldn't it be prudent for the common council to have their own budget master?
We do have a position that we haven't filled. that
I'm not
we
applying.
haven't been, no. There is a line in our budget for a policy analyst that might be a kind of, could have a financial background or a policy
Yeah.
background. But we did put out a posting on it. I think we needed to step back based on the responses to try to figure out what we actually wanted. And then with all of the issues that are going on right now and trying to, with the financial problems, we haven't, up until now, been able to fill that position. But there is a position there.
Don't you feel helpless? You wish you would have known, you wish you would know more about the intricacies, or, do you have
I think it's
people at
part
your
of what
disposal
the council, from my time when I first started on the council, we have grown in terms of staff. And so there's been a kind of progression, and that position was the next step where we want to try to get that position filled. But it's been a little bit of a challenge.
Okay, now I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your trash tax that you proposed.
I don't have a trash tax.
No?
You mean the fee?
The fee, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I mispronounced.
It's actually not my proposal.
It's not, you were tagged with it though, I thought. No, the trash, that everyone in the city
The
would have
waste
to
collection
pay,
fee was proposed as part of last year's budget, and so.
but only for multiple.
For multiple four
Right.
units,
But
it applies to 2 through 4.
Didn't you want to expand that to every
So
single
I
house?
think it's a question of equity if we're going to have that.
Yeah.
And the way other cities do, and it's very common in other communities, other municipalities, who have seen that they have to really find a way to fund trash collection because they can't fund it through their general revenues. And our property taxes, we don't collect enough in property taxes to
Right.
cover all the services that people think we provide. Property taxes don't even cover the police department. So that's why we have other sources of revenue that we need to try to keep things going. So it's a couple of pronged approach. So right now, so that the collection fee was put in place to help offset the cost of curbside collection. Something we've been able to do in part because we've had this landfill that has generated revenue for us and also allowed us to dispose of trash for free. That's going away, the revenues are going down, we need to find alternatives. So in the interim, what was put in place was a collection fee to offset the cost of curbside collection. That sunsets in 2019. The authorization for that sunsets in 2019. And then parallel to that, we reinvigorated a planning process that began, but was a little dormant for a while, to look at longer-term solutions to how we dispose of curbside trash. And one of the things we're doing, we're moving in directions like this year we've begun to pilot automation of recycling. We're going to expand that next year. In 2018, we're going to pilot what we call as a pay-as-you-throw system, where people pay based on the amount of trash they throw, which is very common in other communities. Either you get special bags or tags or carts. And then in 2019, that might be fully implemented. And the idea of the fee, the current fee, is to go away when the new longer-term process for trash disposal comes in place. So right now, it only applies, in theory, 1 unit or 1 family dwellings are exempt, the way it's structured right now, and then 2 through 4, which are the ones that get curbside collection, they pay a fee. It's, in terms of equity, and, in terms of my district and I represent also, it makes sense that if we're going to have a fee, everybody needs to share in the responsibility. So I'm not proposing to take the current fee and simply expand that, but to do it a little bit differently so that it's structured.
This is why I asked you,
Yeah.
because
No, so it's not,
because if I got it wrong, I'm sure a lot of other people
no,
did,
the current
so-
fee is $180, which is supposed to is subject to annual review, so it actually reflects costs.
Okay.
My proposal is not to charge everybody $180.
Okay.
And my proposal is not to expand the amount of revenue that we collect.
Tell us what it is.
The revenue is 1.5 million is what that is supposed to collect. My proposal is to stay within that revenue number, no more, no less. But to create a fee structure that you create a base fee for the first unit and then a graduated scale that goes up for the second, third, and fourth. So that will be more equitable.
Okay.
Everybody has a responsibility to contribute toward it. And one of the discussions we're having right now is what are the actual costs. So I want to identify again what the costs are and to make sure that we're only throwing the actual direct costs into the basket that fee is based on. And we also propose that once we calculate the direct cost, that the fee should reflect no more than 50% of the direct cost. So it's not jacking it up too much, but it's keeping it at a reasonable amount, a temporary fee that gets us through this hole in effect
So,
to where we want to be.
so who figures out these numbers if you don't have a?
No, it's part of,
budget?
under the current law, the mayor is supposed to submit the schedule,
okay.
so we would work in that direction.
Okay, so you,
But
this
we
is
work
something you
with the finance people and the administration as well in terms of the numbers.
But this is something you proposed.
That's my proposal in terms
Okay.
of if we're going to continue the fee, we need to structure it in a different way.
Yeah, okay. So I just want to make sure that was still you who's proposing.
Right, the
Okay.
mayor is not, we don't have the mayor's budget yet, but I believe that they're going to propose continuation of the existing one, which, again, it's just a question of equity in that it should be really spread
So
out.
then when it comes to the common council, you put
That's
an
a
amendment?
discussion.
You put an amendment out
Yeah.
that says?
Well, I already have an amendment pending to the
Okay.
existing law, so that's a discussion that we'll have as part of the
Once-
budget process.
okay.
And of course, I would need a majority of the council members
Right.
to support that in order to do it.
Well, my calculations is you have at least 10 that are always on your side.
No,
No? Okay.
I don't know where that 10 comes from.
Well, just my observation of how the votes.
I've seen some close votes, I've seen some votes that might go 13 or to 2 or whatever, or something like
Right,
that.
right, but I've always seen at least 10 that have been with you, been with you. I don't know, I'm just saying, okay, that's what I've noticed. I haven't been to every meeting, but that's what I've noticed. Now, you also are in favor of the $15 minimum wage?
Yeah, and
read
those are
somewhere.
one of the issues in terms of things that we're dealing with. The state increase in the minimum wage is going to have an impact on us as well. And
By the time it gets to $15, according to the state, it's going to be worth 13 in today's dollars.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
again,
really
there's
catching
a
up.
difference in terms of the upstate downstate dynamic as far
That's
as
true,
what the
too.
state law was. But yes, so when we say $15, it wasn't
But this
effective
is-
January 1, all of a sudden it goes up to $15. It
Right,
has to be
right, right.
phased in.
But you're in favor of this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
I think it's best if it's done on the national level,
Right,
but I
right.
think it's important also, if we can't, that states sometime lead the way in terms of
And
trying to move forward.
localities, okay, too.
Localities can,
But it
I
should be a
think
statewide,
It should
at
be,
least.
statewide. I understand the issue of like regional adjustment because, there's differences in cost of living upstate, downstate.
Right.
And that's something that can be factored in, but you need to assess impacts.
Well, and I want to ask you, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek, why is there no minority leader in the Common Council? You have a majority leader.
The rules, and I've always said maybe the majority leader title should be something different. But when I got there, that was the position that was there. And even though we are all Democrats in
Right.
terms of we don't always agree on everything. So and you have different factions. The role of the majority leader is really to assist the President Pro Tem
Right.
in terms of the President Pro Tem's carrying out their functions. So, for example, when the President is absent, then the President Pro Tem becomes the presiding officer, and the majority leader would take over the role of the President Pro Tem on the floor.
Okay.
Or if I'm not at a meeting,
Right.
if I'm unable to be at, because I have my other job, and there are other things that come up. If I'm not at a meeting, then the majority leader serves as a function of President Pro Tem
Okay.
when I'm not there. So
So-
it probably could have a better title.
Well, aside
than it
from that,
is,
I thought you were
but-
going to say because we only had Democrats in the Common Council.
Well,
And there is no
But-
minority,
right,
per se,
but-
except someone who's of another skin color who's a minority. But-
And that's not
I'm
the
saying
nature,
that, and
yes.
I'm saying that. I'm not saying you should. I don't want to get you in trouble.
But our rules actually establish the position of majority leader and do not establish the position of minority leader.
It doesn't.
No, the rules actually establish that
Because there
position.
hasn't been a Republican elected in the city since 1906 or 8 in the Barnes administration.
Probably. I mean, there have been, I think Corey Ellis was the last council member who was elected in November on a non-democratic line, because he lost a primary, and then he continued on to November as the Working Families Party candidate, and he was elected in November against the incumbent running on Working Families line.
Oh,
So it can happen depending on the circumstances, but.
but like I prefaced, this is all tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, it's all tongue-in-cheek.
Okay, I
And the
didn't
same thing like
mean to say it in,
our caucuses that we have on Wednesday, they're not party caucuses, they're
Right.
more like, work sessions or
I know.
whatever, so we don't exclude anybody.
Also, the barn, you extend your, beyond your common council district, you're on the board of the barn, or
No,
you have some connection with the barn?
not beyond supporting it,
That's it,
Like,
okay.
There's a lot of organizations in the
Oh, I
community
thought
that I
the barn
support.
was, okay, because I thought that was something special.
The
for
Albany
you.
barn down
Yeah.
on.
Arbor Hill.
Yeah, no, beyond,
I thought that was something special for you, that's why I was bringing it up. No,
I do
nothing particular.
support them.
Okay, okay. Okay. Do you find that there's more of a turnover in the common council? I know there's more of a turnover in the state legislature
Mm-hmm.
now than we've ever seen. I mean, in 10 years, you can go into the top third of seniority
Right,
in the state assembly.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. How about in the common council? Do you find that there's...
You have different years. When I was first elected, we had 3 new members. Carolyn, Joe Igo, and myself were elected that year.
And that was...
That was 1998.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember there was a year when we had 5 members. That was a third. But the last election was when we had our biggest turnover.
Yeah.
The combination of people who retired and people who may have lost primary elections.
And
But we had redistricting may have had an impact with 1 or 2 races, but there were 7 new members. And in my time in the council, in my memory, that's the highest turnover we ever had.
That's almost half the council.
It's almost half, and it used to be, when I first got involved in politics in Albany, it was not very competitive, except in the 6th Ward, where we were the nasty insurgents that always challenged the machine.
Right.
And
That's
after
the
that,
spirit.
yeah, that was it. And then after that is that, now it's more common, so that every member of the council right now, except one, got there through a competitive race, a primary election, which changed.
Were you the one?
No, it wasn't. It was
You were
like-
primary?
my first primary, I ran in an open election. That was Sharon Ward's seat at the time.
Sharon Ward.
Sharon was
Yeah. And before
left
her,
and
do you remember?
relocated. Nancy
Yeah.
Burton,
Nancy Burton.
right? And
then-
so when I ran in a 3-way primary.
Uh-huh.
It was very active and very contested.
But since then,
Then I did have a primary in my second election, and since then I have not.
since then, how
No.
dare they run
No.
against you?
No, well, that was it. Especially when you have an open seat and things like that.
Right.
That happens. And as I said, everyone on the council, except for one member.
Are you friends
has-
with those people who ran against you, or did they move away?
'Cause
I always-
Yeah, no, Sharon is no longer in the area. Nancy Burton,
Right, no, I
I'm
meant
fine. Oh.
the people who primaried you. Are they still in the district, and are you
Yeah.
friendly with them? Because I always hear these stories, oh yeah, he ran against me, now we're best friends,
Yeah, they don't all live in the district right now,
Okay.
but the people that I ran against, some people have ran and then moved on. It used to be back then also there used to be Republican candidates, these young kids out of the legislature who wanted to, cut their teeth on something, and they'd run a race and
I know one of those guys in the county legislature, you know who I'm talking about. Okay, so I just got to ask you one other thing. You were involved in your other job in the state with the Berger Commission report. That was something that was really...
Yeah, I mean, that came out.
And it said that the commission's report did not rectify the violation of the open meetings law in the conduct of its work. And that was
I'm not sure
something
what
that
was
was
that.
stated. And I was just, and you're not sure about that. Okay, so let me see what I can...
Oh, we're just about out of time.
Yeah, I
Mark.
know, but I wrote
Yeah,
that
at that
somewhere.
point, when the Berger Commission was done, we were,
Unfortunately, and it doesn't say, let's see, statement. Oh, this was a statement on the Berger Commission recommendations. I guess it was put out by your boss, by Assemblyman Gottfried, but you were the contact on that.
yeah, okay. Well, we weren't involved with the Berger Commission during their deliberations or meetings because he
Right.
was not a member.
But there was some issue about
There
not
may
having
have,
an open meeting.
there may have been some questions about their meetings that were not public,
Right.
but the legislature really didn't get involved with the Berger Commission until they issued their report.
Oh,
And then we had the option of voting it down, but we also, the Health Committee, I remember because we held a series of public hearings on the commission report. Actually, they were simultaneous hearings.
now that we have sevevel years under our belt with this, hospitals doing better? Are we doing better in healthcare because of it? Just generally speaking.
I don't know if it would be if as a result of the Berger Commission. I mean, the Berger Commission was intended, whether or not you agree or not, was intended to identify excess capacity and inefficiencies within the system.
Right, hospitals merged, hospitals closed.
Hospitals merged, things like
Right.
that. I mean, we still
So-
have a problem with hospitals that really, in our hospital system is all basically either public or not-for-profit. Those hospitals that are really doing the mission of, and especially publics and some not-for-profits in urban areas who are doing the mission of really serving communities and underserved communities and communities that are high Medicaid, high uninsured, are ones that still financially struggle, and we need to find ways to buttress them so that they can survive and continue to operate, and that's one of the challenges that we still have.
Okay.
Well, we're out of time, but we're having a good time over here with you, and we end
So I'll
up with
come
a
back.
blessing. All right. Well, we hope that's what we give our blessing, that you should have success for many more years and
Right.
do it with good health.
And continued success, absolutely.
Okay, I appreciate that.